What if I told you chocolate used to be a spicy, bitter drink that people literally used as money? No sugar, no candy bars, just bitter cacao mixed with chili peppers, served cold and traded like cash. You've been eating chocolate your whole life, but I promise you have no idea where it actually came from. By the end of this video, you'll never look at a chocolate bar the same way again. Here's the thing about chocolate. We treat it like dessert. Birthdays, Valentine's Day, that secret stash in your fridge you don't tell anyone about. But for thousands of years, chocolate wasn't sweet at all. It wasn't even solid. It was a drink, and a seriously intense one. We're talking bitter, spicy, sometimes mixed with cornmeal or chili, and reserved for warriors, royalty, and priests. Basically, if you were drinking chocolate 3,000 years ago, you were kind of a big deal. And that's just the beginning. Today, we're counting down 10 facts about chocolate that most people have absolutely no clue about. Some of these are weird. Some are honestly a little dark. And one of them involves something historians call blood diamonds, except with cacao instead of gems. Stick around, because fact number 7 alone is going to change how you see every chocolate bar in your pantry. Let's start rapid fire. Fact 1, chocolate comes from a fruit. Not a bean pod exactly, more like a football-shaped fruit that grows straight out of the trunk of the cacao tree. Crack it open, and you'll find slimy white pulp surrounding the seeds we eventually turn into chocolate. It's weird looking, kind of gross, honestly. But that gross pulp is where this whole story begins. Fact 2, the earliest evidence of cacao use goes back over 5,000 years, way before the Aztecs or the Mayans. Archaeologists found cacao residue on pottery in Ecuador dating back that far. So chocolate is older than most civilizations you learned about in school. Basically, humans have been obsessed with this plant since before we even had writing. Fact 3, the word chocolate likely comes from a Nahuatl word, xocolatl, which roughly translates to bitter water. Think about that for a second. The word literally means bitter, not sweet, not delicious, bitter. That should tell you everything about how different this drink was compared to what you're picturing right now. Okay, now here's where things get really interesting. Fact 4, and this is a big one. The Aztecs used cacao beans as actual currency, not metaphorically, literally money. You could buy a turkey for around 100 beans. A slave might cost somewhere around 100 beans too, depending on the source. Beans were counted, taxed, even collected as tribute from conquered territories. Why? Because cacao was rare, valuable, and didn't grow everywhere. It required a very specific tropical climate. So if you didn't live in the right region, you couldn't just grow your own. That scarcity turned cacao beans into something closer to gold than groceries. People even counterfeited them by hollowing out real beans and stuffing them with dirt. Ancient fraud, basically. Fact 5 takes us somewhere darker. Historians sometimes compare the colonial era cacao trade to what we now call blood diamonds. Why? Because as European demand exploded, cacao plantations across Latin America and later West Africa relied heavily on forced labor and slavery. The sweet treat we casually unwrap today has roots tangled up in some genuinely brutal history. That's not a fun fact. That's a real one, and it matters. Let's keep going. Fact 6. Montezuma, the Aztec emperor, reportedly drank dozens of cups of chocolate a day. Some accounts say 50 cups. It was believed to boost energy, and honestly, given how much caffeine-like compound is in cacao, he probably wasn't wrong. It's like if your morning coffee habit had an emperor-sized budget behind it. Fact 7. Europeans are the ones who added sugar. When Spanish colonizers brought cacao back to Europe in the 1500s, the bitter, spicy drink didn't really land with European taste buds. So they started adding sugar, cinnamon, and vanilla. That single decision basically invented the chocolate we know today. Without that sugar addition, chocolate might have stayed a niche bitter beverage forever. Fact 8, and this one surprises people every time. Solid chocolate bars weren't invented until the 1800s. For roughly 3,000 years, chocolate existed almost entirely as a drink. It wasn't until 1847 that a British company called Fry's figured out how to mix cocoa butter back into cocoa powder and sugar to create something you could actually bite into. That's incredibly recent when you think about chocolate's full timeline. Fact 9. White chocolate isn't technically chocolate. It contains cocoa butter, but none of the cocoa solids that give chocolate its actual chocolate flavor and color. So legally and technically, white chocolate is kind of an imposter wearing chocolate's name. Sorry to anyone whose favorite has just been called out on camera. And fact 10, the one that brings us to today. Roughly 70% of the world's cacao now comes from West Africa, particularly Ivory Coast and Ghana. But here's the twist. Many farmers who grow cacao have never even tasted a finished chocolate bar. They grow the raw material for a $100 billion global industry, and the finished product rarely makes it back to their own communities. That gap between where chocolate comes from and where it ends up is honestly one of the wildest parts of this entire story. So next time you unwrap a chocolate bar, you're not just eating candy. You're eating 5,000 years of history, ancient currency, colonial exploitation, and one very important sugar decision made by Europeans who couldn't handle bitter cacao. Wild, right? If this blew your mind even a little, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people like you. And if you want more deep dives like this, hit subscribe, because we're doing this every week. Drop a comment telling me which fact shocked you the most. Was it the currency thing? The blood diamond comparison? I read every single comment, so let's talk about it down there. See you in the next one.